Hi, I'm John Rose, the developer of the latest version of FlexMonkey. In this video, we're going to look at the FlexMonkey retry feature that's a part of each of the different commands that you can create. So when you're recording things, you're creating UI events. So one that we have here in our sample test we created in our introduction video is an input event that's putting in Flex into the search field. So let me play that guy real quick just so you can see what he does. So there you go. And let's look at the next one. It's actually a search button click. So it's a click event that does a search. Now what I want to show you is on each of these they have retry, delay, retry attempts, and retry timeout settings. There's also retry and response, which we'll talk about here at the end. If I go through the different types of commands, there's also a verify expression. He's got similar settings, as does, pause does not, because obviously pause is very simple, but as does verify grid, store value. They all have these common retry delay, retry attempts, and total retry timeout, which is obviously just a calculation of multiplying delay times attempts. So it's important to understand when you're creating FlexMonkey tests that you can't control the timing of everything in the app. So in this example, we're going off and searching for data on Twitter and getting back results. So let's actually play just this setup test, and this will give us a good example of the retries. So you'll see here that we hit a retry 1. So one thing I'm going to do so we can see it is let's tune that down so that we're actually checking every tenth of a second that this expression, which is saying our data provider.length should be greater than 0. We're checking every tenth of a second that that's true immediately after we hit the search button. So now we're going to play him and we'll see more. Well, we actually had data in there, so I'm going to close that. I'm going to go over and clear. So now there's no data in there. That's why we succeeded so quickly, as we actually satisfied the expectation of that expression. So now I'm going to play him, and we saw him actually retry 3 times. So in a lot of cases, a lot of other platforms aren't as fast as Twitter when it's up anyway. And so you can't necessarily control how quickly those results are going to come back or how quickly something's going to happen on the screen. So it's essentially a polling mechanism that's going and saying, is this case true? Is this component found? And is its data state what I think it should be? So in our case, it's finding the component, but it's not finding the expected data state. So retries are a really important part of testing with FlexMonkey, because without them, you would not really be able to reliably create a test that's going to work no matter where you run it. And then eventually, obviously, this times out if it doesn't find the results. So that's pretty key to making sure you have a robust test suite, is to kind of understand those retry settings. The other thing we wanted to look at with the retry settings is this retry only on response. So this shows up in 2 places. This shows up on our retry on our UI event commands and also on our function commands. So if you want to learn more about our call function commands, go ahead and watch that introduction video. We'll just talk about the UI event option here. So there's cases where we don't want to do something more than once. Otherwise, we're going to get adverse results. So let's say that on a tab navigator, I'm clicking close. So a lot of people extend tab navigator and put a close button. In that case, if you click close too many times, the tab's not going to be there to click, and when that event gets dispatched, Flex is going to complain that, hey, there's no tab, but you can't click on the index of 2 or whatever it may be. This allows us to guard against that, to say retry only on response. So in most cases, FlexMonkey is going to retry at the interval that you give it no matter what. In those cases, and that's a good thing though, because it makes FlexMonkey really robust and not dependent on any performance problems. Since we're bound to the Flash player runtime, if, for example, say you had a long-running thread, you can drop a lot of communication and connections that you would not want to, and then your test run's going to die. So we want to keep hitting the app, but in some of these rare cases, we want to prevent that from happening and only do the next retry after the application responds and says, hey, I succeeded or I failed, and here's why I failed. And so if we get a failed response and we've got retry attempts left, this will wait for that response to come back, and then do the next retry. So say it's 10 seconds that the app locked, and then the response came back. Even though we gave it a second retry time, he's going to wait that full 10 seconds. The risk of using this setting and why it's not just the default is that uh, if it just dropped that communication, he would never come back and your test run would fail. So you only want to use this where you really need to guard against that. For example, on the closed navigator example, tab navigator example, excuse me. And it'll help you protect against those cases, but otherwise leave it unchecked. That's kind of the scoop on the retry stuff. I know it's a little bit complex. For developers, it's pretty natural to think about Flex in terms of asynchronous behavior and how to deal with those things. If you're one of our QA users out there, definitely it's a little bit more convoluted, but not too bad once you get the hang of it. And in most cases, the defaults are going to work for you, but it's always good to understand what's happening for you. Good luck with that, and good luck creating flex tests and creating robust tests based on retry settings.